Looks like I'm doing a hair tutorial today. Now, I realize that I am many months late to replying to this comment, but we're here now, so let's get into it. Now, before you actually get into wanting to draw hair, you should probably have a pretty good understanding on how to draw the head, and I have a video on that. If you haven't watched it, click the icon above. It's linked. It's literally less than 5 minutes long, so it's not gonna take you that long to get through. Plus, you don't have to watch my video on it. There are many tutorials on YouTube on how to draw heads. And once you have a pretty solid idea on how to draw heads, come back and we can start drawing hair. Something else that I want to say before we actually start drawing the hair is that the character's hairstyle can be a really good tool to reflect their personality. So instead of just giving your characters that generic anime hairstyle that you see in almost all isekais out there, you can give your character's hair a unique twist to reflect something about themselves. And I'll get more into that later into the video. Yeah, so I completely forgot to go back to that point. I guess that's just what happens when you don't script your content. But anyways, the first example that comes to my mind when we're talking about hair that reflects something about a character is Bakugo from My Hero Academia. He has an explosion quirk, and he also has an explosive personality, so his hair is kind of shaped like an explosion, you see? Another example that comes to my mind is Goku, specifically when he's a kid. His figure mostly consists of like round shapes to accentuate his soft and kind-hearted personality, but then you get to his hair, and his hair is really spiky and really obnoxious, which is supposed to signify how he can get aggressive and feisty when it comes to protecting his friends. Just some food for thought. Anyway, back to the video. But for now we have our bases here, and let's say I just want to draw a very generic kind of hairstyle. Now with any hairstyle we have to know that the hair originates from a very specific point on our heads called the vortex, which is located somewhere around here on the back side of the head. Now, depending on the character, it might be more towards the right or more towards the left. It really doesn't matter. You can pick whichever side you want. But this is the point where all of the hair is going to move away from, typically in a spiraling motion. So let's move over to our first model here, and let's say the vortex is somewhere around here, like on the back side of the head, obviously. And let's start drawing a very rough outline of what the hair might look like. Now, like I said, this is a very generic example of a kind of hairstyle that you would find in an anime or manga. But even with this hairstyle, there are a few things we can learn. First off, notice that I didn't draw every single individual hair that this person has. I drew clumps of hair that bunched together to form bigger and thicker hair strands. And that's how we got to this. Now, another thing that we can keep in mind is that typically the more lines and details that we add to the hair, the thinner the hair is gonna look. Kind of like this. You see the difference? He looks very organized and very tidy because his hair is groomed and combed. But let's just say I take this very same hairstyle to this exact same character, and I just make the hair a tiny bit more chaotic. Now granted, I still haven't done a whole bunch to change the way the hair looks, but look, just by adding a few strands that kind of protrude outward and don't follow the natural curve that this combed version does, now suddenly these two characters are giving off a completely different vibe from one another, even though they're the same character, just with a different hairstyle. This one looks a lot more calm, calculated, and meticulous, kind of like Kira from Death Note. And this one looks a lot more sporadic and maybe a little bit more reckless than this one. Anyway, you get the point. Even with very basic kind of hairstyles, you can really reflect the personality of your character. Something else that I forgot to mention that is actually a pretty important tip is to figure out your character's hairline before you even start drawing the hair. Usually if you skip this step, especially if you're a beginner, your character's hair is gonna look a lot more like a wig instead of just natural hair. It actually helps when you're drawing more stylized and shorter hair. For this guy's hairline, I like to go a little below the guideline that I had set for myself originally. And let's just say that that's the hairline. And in this case, I want to give this guy braids, or kind of like dreads. For these more exotic kind of hairstyles, I would say use a reference from Pinterest, like I am right now. Even with this guy, I'm using a reference right now on my other phone. This is the reference that I'm using. Don't be afraid to use references, it's not cheating. Using references is literally an artist's biggest flex. So yeah, you can see with this example that it doesn't just have to be the character's personality, it also might reflect their background, their culture, their, I don't know, their traditions, like whatever. The point I'm trying to get across here is that you shouldn't just treat the character's hairstyle as just something to fill in the blank space in their head. You should use it to convey something about their character. Could be their personality, could be their goals, could be their culture, could be their background, their ethnicity, whatever. Just don't let it go to waste, is what I'm saying. And you know, you can also go completely crazy with it and just give like your character's waves or something, or a completely different hairstyle than the ones you would typically see in anime and manga. So yeah, you see how all of these are all the same model, but just with different hairstyles. They give off a completely different vibe, and you can kind of infer what their personality is sort of like. Again, take advantage of the hair. Don't just use it to fill in the empty space in your character's head. Use it to reflect something about your character. Now, I'm aware that I didn't really give much of an explanation on how to draw these two hairstyles right here, but that's because they're just so specific that they kind of warrant a separate video on their own. Of course, if you want me to do a tutorial on a specific kind of hairstyle, you're welcome to do that. Just leave it in the comments below. Anyways, that was the video. I hope you enjoyed. Drop a like, sub, all that good stuff, you know, and I'll see you next time.